Hola chicos! Today's lesson is going to be a little bit different from previous lessons because we're not talking more about grammar, we're talking more about how to make your paragraphs more interesting for when you write your food posts. One of the ways that you can help yourself is to make sure you include an introduction. Does it bother you when you start to read something, either a magazine or a book, and the author just jumps right in without telling you what they're going to be talking about? In Spanish class, if you haven't started to include introduction sentences, you need to start. They help to interest and focus your reader. Here are some ideas to spark your reader's interest and to keep it going throughout. So these are some strategies. We've got a couple of strategies here. The first one is to use a summary sentence, and here are some examples that you have enough information and enough practice to be able to form on your own. So some examples are, en Austin, muchas personas tienen una dieta saludable, y en mi familia no es diferente. So this summary sentence right here kind of sets it up to say that I'm going to be writing about the healthy diet that my family has. Another example would be, yo no soy una persona muy saludable, mi dieta tiene mucha comida basura. So this summary sentence sets up my paragraphs to basically say how I'm going to be talking about all of the junk food that I'm eating. Another example is, soy una persona muy interesante, pero mi dieta es muy aburrida. Okay, so here I'm setting up my paragraphs to say that my diet is really boring. And then I'll go on and explain about how my diet's pretty boring. Maybe it's just cereal and sandwiches and cereal again, etc. So one way, again, is to use summary sentences. Another way to write an introduction, a real basic introduction, is to talk to the reader. Si te gusta la comida saludable, eres como yo. ¿Te gusta la comida saludable? A mí sí, y voy a hablar de las comidas saludables en mi dieta. So it's like you're automatically just talking to the reader, asking a question right off the bat, and then taking it and shaping it so that you can talk about your own self. ¿Prefieres las comidas dulces o saladas? A mí me encantan las comidas dulces, y como mucha comida dulce durante el día. So here, I'm asking the question, and then I'm turning it and talking about myself, talking about what I like, and how this last one shows that I'll be talking about all the sweet foods that I eat during the day. So our strategies for writing an introduction, something that we would know how to say, are to use a summary sentence and to talk to the reader. Another way to add some interest throughout is to add in transitions, and you've seen some of these before. You've seen primero, segundo, luego, después. One new one is todavía, which means still. So I could say something like, yo como cereales en el desayuno, pero todavía tengo hambre. So I still am hungry after I eat that cereal, and so I'll explain about something else that I eat. También is one that we've used before. Además is another one. Durante y por último. You can also, you're to the point where you can build some transition expressions, and that also helps to add in some interest. So you could say 2 horas después, 2 horas más tarde, después de 2 horas. Here's an example. Primero a las 8 de la mañana desayuno cereales con leche y 2 horas más tarde como una merienda de frutas. This helps to give some variation, some variety. It's great to have variety. I would use a combination of single words and transition expressions. The last strategy that we're going to talk about today is to combine sentences to make them compound and complex. Okay, so you've done this before. You're going to use E for and. You're going to use E when you have sentences that have similar ideas. So for example, las frutas son deliciosas, las verduras son muy sabrosas. Deliciosas y sabrosas, those are synonyms. They both mean tasty and delicious. So I can combine these two sentences with the word E. Las frutas son deliciosas y las verduras son muy sabrosas. What happens though if you have two sentences that have different information? You're going to connect them with the word pero, which tells us but. Las frutas son deliciosas, las verduras, son asquerosas. Las frutas son deliciosas, pero las verduras son asquerosas. Those are two pieces of information that are different. They oppose each other. I can also make complex sentences. So a complex sentence is basically two expressions separated by a comma. One of them's a complete sentence, but one of them isn't. Si estoy en casa, me gusta comer cereales. That si tells us if. There's no accent mark with the si. That si tells us if. Si estoy en casa. If I am at home, I like to eat cereal. Pero, si voy a un restaurante, if I go to a restaurant, me gusta comer panqueques. Another one that you could use is cuando. Cuando tells us when. Cuando voy a McDonald's, me gusta comer las papas fritas porque son muy saladas. So cuando tells us when I go to McDonald's. This also helps to give some sentence variety and make sure your sentences aren't all so choppy. So in summary, we've talked about including an introduction, whether that be a summary sentence, talking to the reader, maybe even a combination of both. We've talked about adding in transitions. These could be single words, primero, segundo, luego, por último, después, or they could be transition expressions, 2 horas más tarde. And it's effective to have a combination of single words and transition expressions. Finally, the last strategy that we talked about today is to combine sentences, making sentences compound using y and pero, making them complex using si and cuando. Mañana vamos a practicar más con estas ideas y con escribir las conclusiones. So tomorrow's focus will have conclusions, but today we want you to try to include some of these strategies when you make corrections for your paragraphs.